Carlton Wilborn was one of Madonna's black dancers on the Blond Ambition Tour. When someone in the Houston crowd hurled a racial slur at him mid-performance, he froze. Madonna heard it. The band stopped. And what she did in the next 10 minutes not only defended Carlton, but changed how the entire music industry handled racism at live events. March 28, 1990. The summit in Houston, Texas was packed with 45,000 fans for what was already the most controversial tour of the decade. Madonna's Blond Ambition Tour had been making headlines for weeks, not just for the music, but for everything else. The cone bra designed by Jean-Paul Gaultier, the simulated masturbation during Like a Virgin, the religious imagery that had the Vatican condemning the show. Several cities had tried to ban the tour entirely, but the controversy wasn't just about sexuality or religion. It was also about who was on that stage with Madonna. Her dance crew was intentionally diverse, deliberately integrated in a way that made a statement all by itself. José Gutiérrez and Luis Camacho, both Latino, Salim Gauloz and Carlton Wilborn, both black, Oliver Crooms, Donna DeLaury, Nikki Harris. This wasn't just a backup crew. Madonna had made them stars, giving them solo moments, featuring them in the concert film, treating them as equals rather than as anonymous bodies behind the main attraction. Carlton Wilborn had grown up in Detroit, trained in dance since he was 7 years old, and had worked his way through the brutal audition process to land one of the most coveted jobs in entertainment. Being a Madonna dancer in 1990 meant you were at the center of pop culture, but it also meant you were a target. Carlton and Salim, the two black men in the crew, knew that their visibility on that stage, dancing provocatively with Madonna, touching her, being featured prominently, was going to upset certain people. They'd talked about it during rehearsals, had even joked nervously about what might happen when they performed in certain cities. Houston was one of those cities they'd been warned about. Texas in 1990 was complicated. The cities were diverse and increasingly progressive, but there were still deep pockets of conservatism and racial tension. Madonna's management had actually considered skipping Houston entirely, worried that the combination of sexual content and racial integration might be too much for certain segments of the audience. But Madonna had insisted. She didn't believe in self-censorship, and she wasn't going to let fear dictate where she performed. The show had been going smoothly for the first hour. The energy in the summit was electric. The crowd was loud and engaged, and the performance was tight and powerful. Carlton was in his element, hitting every move with precision, feeling that rush that comes from performing at the highest level in front of tens of thousands of people. They were about halfway through Vogue, one of Madonna's biggest hits and a centerpiece of the show. The choreography was complex and demanding, with the dancers striking poses that referenced classic Hollywood, fashion, and black ballroom culture. Carlton was center stage with Madonna during one section, the two of them executing a series of moves that required perfect synchronization and trust. That's when it happened. During a brief instrumental break, a voice from somewhere in the lower bowl, amplified by the momentary quiet, cut through the arena with a racial slur so vile that everyone within 50 feet heard it clearly. The word was directed at Carlton, at Salim, at any black person who dared to be on that stage. Carlton's body went rigid. He didn't miss the next move. Muscle memory carried him through, but something had changed in his face. The joy was gone, replaced by something that looked like hurt, mixed with resignation. This wasn't the first time he'd faced racism, but it was the first time it had happened like this, so publicly, so viciously, in the middle of what should have been one of the proudest moments of his career. Madonna heard it too. Her head snapped toward where the sound had come from. her expression shifting from performance mode to something much more serious. She continued singing for another few bars, but you could see her mind working, processing what had just happened and what she was going to do about it. Then she made her decision. She stopped singing mid-phrase. She signaled to the band to stop playing. Within seconds, the music had died completely, leaving 45,000 people in confused silence, wondering what was happening. Madonna walked to the front of the stage. She wasn't angry in an explosive way. She was controlled, focused, and absolutely furious in a way that made her more intimidating than if she'd been screaming. The spotlight operators kept the lights on her as she stood there, letting the silence build, making sure she had everyone's complete attention. "Stop," Madonna said, into her microphone, and though her voice was quiet, it carried to every corner of the arena. "We're not going to continue until something is addressed." The crowd noise dropped to nothing. 45,000 people holding their breath. "Someone just used a word that I'm not going to repeat," Madonna said, her voice steady but shaking with controlled anger. "A racial slur, directed at one of my dancers, and I want to be very clear about something right now." She turned and gestured toward her dance crew, who were standing frozen in their positions. Carlton and Salim both visible on the main stage, their faces showing a mixture of shock and something that looked like they were trying to disappear. "These men and women are not just my backup dancers," Madonna continued, her voice getting stronger. "They are artists, they are professionals, they are my family, and more than that, they are human beings who deserve respect." The way she said family carried weight. In Texas in 1990, a white woman claiming black men as family was still a radical statement to some people. "Carlton," Madonna said, looking directly at him. "Come here." Carlton hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with being singled out, but Madonna gestured again, and he walked to center stage, next to her. Up close, you could see that his eyes were wet, that he was fighting to maintain composure. "This man," Madonna said, putting her arm around Carlton's shoulders, "is one of the most talented dancers I've ever worked with. He's been training since he was a child. He's worked harder than most people in this arena can imagine to get here, and he does not deserve to be disrespected by ignorant hatred." She paused, letting that sink in, and when she spoke again, her voice was even more intense. "I want to tell all of you something about this tour. I chose this crew very deliberately. I wanted diversity. I wanted different races, different backgrounds, different experiences, because that's what America is supposed to be. That's what music is. That's what art is. And if you have a problem with that, if you can't watch talented black men and women perform without hatred in your heart, then you need to leave right now." The silence that followed was deafening. Madonna stood there, arms still around Carlton's shoulders, staring into the crowd with an intensity that dared anyone to challenge her. "I can see the exits from here," Madonna said, echoing what she'd said at other confrontational moments in her career. "They're not hard to find. If you can't give these artists the respect they deserve, if you can't watch this show without racism poisoning your heart, then I invite you to leave, because we're not continuing until everyone here understands that this stage belongs to all of us, not just to people who look a certain way." For what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The tension in the arena was thick enough to cut. This was the moment of maximum danger. Madonna had drawn a line, had made it clear she was willing to sacrifice the show, her reputation in Texas, potentially her career in the South, over this principle. Then someone started applauding. Then more people joined in. Within seconds, the vast majority of the 45,000-person audience was on their feet, not just applauding but cheering, some crying, some shouting words of support. The sound was overwhelming, a wall of affirmation that seemed to physically push back against the hate that had been expressed. But it wasn't unanimous. There were sections where people remained seated, where arms stayed crossed, where faces showed anger at what Madonna had just said. And there was movement toward the exits, as some people, maybe a few thousand out of the 45,000, decided they'd rather leave than accept what Madonna was demanding of them. The exit of those few thousand was tense. Security later reported arguments, shouting, at least 2 physical altercations, as people fought with friends or family members over whether to stay or go. Some of the people leaving were yelling insults, making it clear that they were leaving specifically because they disagreed with Madonna's stance. Madonna stood on that stage, arms still around Carlton, watching people leave. She didn't look regretful or uncertain. She looked defiant and proud. And Carlton, who had been fighting tears earlier, was now openly crying, but they weren't tears of hurt anymore. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of feeling protected in a way he hadn't expected. When the last of the dissenting audience members had filtered out, something remarkable happened. The remaining crowd, maybe 42,000 people now, started chanting Carlton's name. The sound built until it filled the entire arena, and Carlton, overwhelmed, had to cover his face with his hands. Madonna pulled him into a hug, and the microphone caught what she whispered to him. "You belong here. Don't you ever forget that." She released Carlton and turned to address the crowd again. "Thank you," she said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you for choosing love over hate. Thank you for understanding what this is really about." Then she made a decision that would become legendary in tour lore. "Carlton," she said, "I want you to have this moment. This is your stage now." She gestured to the rest of the dance crew to join them, and all 7 dancers came to the front of the stage. "I want you all to dance," Madonna said. "No music, no me, just you. Show them who you are." What happened next was unprecedented. The dancers, without any musical accompaniment, performed a section of choreography together, their movements creating their own rhythm, their breathing and the sound of their feet hitting the stage, providing the only soundtrack. It was raw and powerful and completely unplanned. The crowd watched in reverent silence, and when the dancers finished, the applause was thunderous. Madonna joined in, applauding her own crew, elevating them, making sure everyone understood that they were the stars of this moment. The rest of the show had a different energy than a typical Blond Ambition performance. Madonna introduced each dancer by name and told the audience something about them, their backgrounds, their training, why they were special. She was using her platform not just to entertain, but to educate, to humanize people who might just be seen as anonymous backup dancers. The immediate aftermath was complex. News of what happened in Houston spread quickly. The headline in the next day's Houston Chronicle read, "Madonna takes stand against racism at concert." National media picked up the story within days, with reactions falling along predictable political lines. For Madonna personally, there were consequences. Several Texas venues canceled future shows. Some radio stations in the South reduced or eliminated Madonna from their playlists. The tour insurance company raised their rates, citing the unpredictability of the performances. Some sponsors considered pulling their support, but there were positive consequences too. Carlton Wilborn and the other dancers suddenly found themselves with higher profiles, more job offers, more recognition as artists in their own right. The story became a case study in artist activism, taught in cultural studies programs. Other performers began speaking up more forcefully about racism in their industries. For Madonna, Houston crystallized something that had been building in her approach to activism. She had always pushed boundaries, but this was different. This was a direct confrontation with racism, a willingness to lose audience members rather than tolerate hatred, a choice to risk commercial success for moral principle. In interviews following Houston, Madonna was unequivocal. "I don't regret it for a second," she told Rolling Stone. "If standing up for my dancers costs me fans, then those weren't fans I wanted anyway. Carlton and Salim and Jose and Luis and all of them, they're not just employees, they're my brothers and sisters, and I will always protect my family." Carlton Wilborn still talks about that night. In a 2020 interview, he said, "Madonna didn't just defend me that night, she validated my existence. She told 45,000 people that my life mattered, that my art mattered, that I deserved to be on that stage. I've had a long career since then, but nothing has ever meant more to me than those 10 minutes in Houston." The impact rippled beyond that one show. Venues began implementing clearer anti-discrimination policies. Artist contracts started including provisions about how to handle racism or bigotry in audiences. The incident became a reference point for how to confront hatred rather than ignore it. 50 years from now, people will still remember Madonna for her music, her videos, her cultural impact. But for those who were in Houston that night, for Carlton and the other dancers, for the 42,000 people who chose to stay, Madonna will be remembered for something else, for drawing a line between entertainment and principle, for showing that sometimes defending someone's dignity matters more than finishing a show, for demonstrating that real courage means risking something you value for something you believe in. In the grand sweep of history, this might seem like a small moment. But history is made of small moments, individual choices by individual people at crucial junctures. Sometimes the choice of one person with a platform can echo forward through time, becoming part of a larger story about who we are and who we want to be. That night in Houston, Madonna made a choice. She chose conscience over comfort, courage over caution, her dancers over her commercial interests. She drew a line and said clearly, "Some things matter more than applause or ticket sales or market share. Human dignity, respect, justice." The music industry changed a little bit that night. Not completely, not permanently, but enough that it mattered, and Carlton Wilborn danced on stages around the world for the next 3 decades, carrying with him the memory of the night someone tried to diminish him, and Madonna said, "Not on my stage." If this story of standing against hatred moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this with someone who needs to know that speaking up matters, that defending others matters, that sometimes the most important thing an artist can do is be human. Let us know in the comments about times you've seen someone take a stand when it mattered, and ring that notification bell for more stories about moments when courage made history.